You're listening to Spartan Up Podcast, where we study success and everything required to create it. We interview people from all over the world that are successful, no matter how they define it.
Yeah.
So, GT Dave, Kombucha guy. We're talking about this guy.
One thing I find really interesting with this is that Joe just finds such fascinating people, and GT Dave is just a fascinating guy. Like, he's very different than most people we've interviewed, and so if you've found that you think we're ever getting into like a pattern, a guy like GT Dave comes along and blows the whole pattern up. So watch this. It's pretty
I actually kind of disagree a little bit. I see some of the same patterns in there. So he has a completely different personality, and he's not an endurance guy, but he's still part of the whole health and fitness movement. Yeah. And I see some patterns in there too. So
cool. Well, let's let everyone else go see it too.
Yeah.
We are here in LA for Spartan Up Podcast with GT Dave, the Kombucha King. Did I say it right? Kombucha King?
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So, what is kombucha?
Well,
for those people out there that don't know what it is.
Okay. Well, kombucha is an organic tea that's cultured with a probiotic. So if you think of kind of like yogurt or kefir, where that's fermented milk, kombucha is a fermented tea.
Because those good bacteria are really good for the stomach and the body.
Exactly.
And what happens in today's society with antibiotics and so forth? We lose all that good bacteria?
Absolutely. I mean, in this world where everybody takes antibiotics if they have the sniffles or a cough or a sneeze, or we have foods that have pesticides, or we have environments where there's smog and pollution, the good bacteria in our body is slowly dying off, and we're not replenishing it because everybody's so Sena with the antibacterial soaps and things of that nature. So we really need more than ever to replenish that good bacteria.
What happens if you don't have the good bacteria?
Well, a lot of things can happen. I mean, there's some early studies now that are saying that children are developing allergies because their bodies aren't able to deal with bacteria of any kind. Because, again, so much of the antibacterial soaps and things of that nature, the Lysols, the Febreze.
And they don't play in the dirt anymore? They don't go outside?
Exactly.
Right?
I mean, we've started to believe that dirt is bad when actually dirt won't hurt, as they say,
Dirt won't hurt. That's going to be my new slogan. Yeah, so you got to have good bacteria, and you can get it from yogurt.
Yes.
Right? But not everybody can eat yogurt.
Exactly.
Right? You can get it from where else?
Well, you can get it, of course, kombucha. You can get it from sauerkraut. You can get it from kimchi. You can get it from miso. You can get it from other kind of fermented foods. I mean, you can also get it in supplements, which is not bad. But I believe that everything should come naturally, right?
Like live food.
Live food, exactly.
And so you were sitting around one day 20 years ago and decided to ferment a mushroom or something? How'd this happen?
Kind of. I mean, 20 plus years ago, kombucha came into my parents' house, and my parents were making it, drinking it, fell in love with it. And I was just a teenager, so I honestly didn't understand what they were doing. But after a couple of years of observing them drinking it and watching them fall in love with it and watching them kind of praise its health benefits, I thought I'd give it a chance. And that's when I fell in love with it.
So how did they make it? What did they boiled a pot of mushrooms? What did they do?
No, actually, it's kind of simple but kind of strange. I mean, you start off with regular tea that you brew, and then you put it in kind of a bowl or a batch, maybe about a gallon in size, and then you add this culture, which a lot of people call a mushroom, but actually it's not a mushroom in any way. It's not a fungus, but the reason why people call it a mushroom is it looks like a portobello mushroom with its texture and shape. Anyway, you put that in the batch, let it sit for anywhere from 7 days to 14 days, and at the end of that time frame, you have kind of a pungent-tasting, naturally carbonated, vinegary drink that when you first try it, it's weird, but then you notice you get into it.
So you're a teenager, you walk into your house and your parents have vats of fermenting 7 to 10-day-old drinks in the house. Is that weird?
Very weird. I mean, I'd had friends that would come over, smell the kombucha, see the batches on the table, and look to me and say, dude, are your parents like pod people? I mean, what's going on here? And, I mean, it's very interesting to see. You see all these different batches lined up on a table, and you get close to them, and you hear them kind of burping and moving, and it's kind of freaky. It's very much like a science project.
But your parents were glowing. You started to see some health benefits, and you're thinking maybe they're onto something here?
Yes. And, honestly, they didn't really know what kombucha was. A friend of theirs, who is also a vegetarian, very much on the health path, said, guys, give this a try. It's making us feel great, but we don't know if this is like a placebo effect. So give it a try. Let us know what you think. And my parents were like, all right. And they gave it a try, started drinking it, and pretty quickly they noticed, almost immediately, changes in their energy level, shortly thereafter changes in their skin, even their hair. They just felt an overall sense of improved well-being, and that was when they were sold. But they honestly didn't know why.
And then you got hooked.
And then a couple of years later, after observing this, and then also noticing that my mother went through her battle with breast cancer, and the role that kombucha played in keeping her strong, keeping her resilient, powering her through her cancer treatments is really what inspired me, not only to start drinking it myself, but inspired me to want to share it with others.
So you're seeing your parents have these health benefits, their friends are having health benefits, and then you're starting to see some health benefits, or she's going through cancer, what's happening?
Okay, so my mother was going through cancer. She was drinking kombucha. It was powering her through her treatments because she chose to go through chemotherapy, which, as everybody knows, is very hard on the body.
Toxic.
Yes. But through her treatments, and while drinking kombucha, her doctors were saying, I mean, your response or the way your body is being resilient throughout the treatments is pretty incredible. Also, going back a little bit.
They're asking, what are you doing?
What are you doing? And they actually even asked her earlier on what she was doing, because when she was first diagnosed, the kind of cancer that she had was known to be very fast-growing. And the doctors had believed that she had had it for about 4 years because the size of her tumor was about 2 inches in diameter, about the size of a golf ball.
Wow.
And so when they first diagnosed her, they immediately were like, we don't think this is going to go very well. We think this has already spread to your bones. We're going to proceed with a bone marrow transplant, yada, yada, yada. But it wasn't until they got the test results back is when they noticed that her cancer was mostly precancerous and it hadn't metastasized, hadn't gone to her lymph nodes and definitely not her bones.
Wow.
And they asked her flat out, what are you doing? Any Chinese herbs, Chinese medicines, anything that's out of the ordinary? And she said, well, for the last couple of years, I've been drinking this pungent tasting tea that makes me feel great. And I said, well, whatever it is, continue to do it because your situation's miraculous.
So hearing that, did you say to yourself, there's a business here? Or you might have said, I don't want to put words in your mouth, you might have said, well, maybe we could help other people.
So honestly, what was happening is at this time, I mean, the stars were kind of aligning in a weird way. So although I was just a teenager, I was in high school, and I had just met with my college counselor, and she asked me what I want to do with my life. And I told her, I said, I want to be a doctor or a lawyer, or, something like that. And she looked at my grades and she said, sweetheart, I don't think that's going to happen. And that was my first reality check. And it was kind of an eye-opener for the path that I was on as a teenager was not the path that I was raised on, which is trying to live a positive life, leaving a positive impact on the world. I was ditching class. I was hanging out with the wrong crowd. So I approached my parents and I said...
You were drinking kombucha.
I wasn't drinking kombucha yet. Yeah, I was drinking bootleg kombucha, barely.
Yeah.
But I wanted... So it was an opportunity to reflect on what I was doing. And so I approached my parents and I said, I want to leave high school. I want to take my GED. I want to leave high school, start City College, because I want to be with people that want to be in school, that want to learn and want to do something with their lives, not because they're there just because they have to.
Yeah.
And surprisingly...
That's pretty forward thinking.
It was. And my parents said to me, surprisingly, they said, you know what? Go for it.
Wow.
And so I technically dropped out of high school, and I was getting ready to enroll in City College, and that's when kombucha kind of came to a head. And now answering your question, so the feeling that I had, the idea that came into my mind was this kombucha is very special. It has touched my family's life, it has touched my mom's life, it clearly has touched other people's lives, but it's really just something that people are making on their own. It's not going to go very far. So I approached my parents, I said, guys, you should do something with this, it's really special. And they said, son, that's a big deal. If you want to do it, you do it. And I thought, okay.
So let's take this perfect time for a break. Let's take a break, and then we'll come back and talk about the business, building the business from that moment on.
All right.
All right.
I hope you're not sitting still while you listen. If you are, you better get a burpee break in.
All right, so your parents say go for it. You got your GED at this point?
Yes.
You got your GED. You're about to go into college?
Yes. Santa Monica City College.
Santa Monica City College. And what happened? Did you start taking stuff out of a batch and pouring it into a plastic bottle and peddling it, or what?
Kind of. So what happened was that I started to make kombucha because up to that point my father had been making it. And he had been making it slightly differently, where he was fermenting it longer than I think was necessary, so it was almost like pure vinegar, and it was borderline undrinkable. So I thought, well, how can I achieve the same potency but also make it much more palatable? So I started to play with my own batches, and I feel I achieved something that was more palatable, and that's what I started to drink myself.
You were like, you guys don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
I got it figured out here.
Yeah, stop making this gasoline. Let's make something that tastes good.
And just by playing around in the kitchen.
Yes.
Nice.
And so I started making it myself, started bottling it, but I really approached, when things really came together is when I approached my first health food store. And the name of the store is called Air One. It's here in Los Angeles. It's the health food store that my parents took me to many years as a kid.
1996-ish?
95.
95?
Yeah. And mind you, I'm making everything from my parents' kitchen.
Right.
And I had designed the label on my computer, and it was really very much my own kind of artistic expression.
Sure.
So I went to Air One, kind of pitched it, and really expecting them to like number crunch with me or negotiate, and they honestly just said, sure, when can you start delivering?
How old are you at this point?
I was 16.
16, I love it, love it.
Yeah. So I actually showed up with my dad, fully dressed in a suit, with like a briefcase that had like a notepad, a pen, and a calculator that I never opened up because I walked in, I just showed them the product, they said, sure, and then I said, okay, and then I left.
That
was that simple.
You left the briefcase behind, you didn't need that.
Exactly.
So it starts working, you start selling.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly...
Do you have a company set up at this point, or?
Yes. So my father, and this is something I'm very grateful for. So my father is an attorney, and so he helped form the corporation and do some of that legal stuff to make sure that I didn't get myself into trouble.
Sure.
So he formed the corporation, and that's what I was doing business under.
Nice. And that was called at the time?
Millennium Products.
Nice.
Which is a name that both of my parents came up with separately. And that's why...
Independently?
Independently.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so you went with it?
I went with it.
And is that still the name of the company?
Still the name of the company.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so from there, it starts to grow.
Yes.
And before you know it, you're in the thick of it.
Yes.
Run into cash flow problems, labor problems, I mean, all the typical business.
Well, so for the first 2 years, I mean, I was literally a one-man show. So I was making it, bottling it, delivering it, labeling it, everything, right? And I was making it from my parents' kitchen, so I didn't really have an overhead. So I didn't have to experience some of the financial pressures that most startups encounter. So I'm very grateful for that because, again, I was able to just focus on innovating and expressing what I loved. It wasn't until year 3 where I moved out of my parents' house. Well, the business moved out of the parents' house, and that's when I had my first experience with overhead, rent. I started hiring my first employees, and it was a shell shock because not only was there the financial dynamics that I wasn't used to, but there was also the dynamics of working with others, right? Having somebody else make the kombucha.
They might not show up one day.
Exactly. Or they might just not have the right vibe. Right. Because I'm a firm believer that in energy and what you get is what you give. And if I just had somebody that came in and really kind of half-assed it, the product might be inferior. So I was very conscientious about that.
Yeah, I'm listening to this story, and it sounds a lot like mine. I mean, I started at a young age in my family's house, and then eventually got away from it. And it is a shell shock when you have to pay rent and become a big boy, right, and deal with that stuff.
Absolutely.
And so, where does it really? Because now it's everywhere, right? I'm in the middle of Vermont, and there's GT Dave's Kombucha right in the middle from Millennium Products.
Yeah.
When did it explode?
I mean, I would say probably the first 10 years was just slow.
96 to 2006.
Yeah, 95 to 2005.
Slow grind.
Slow grind. And a lot of it was intentional, the slow growth, because I treated my company and my product kind of like an overprotective parent. Right? I didn't want it to grow up too fast. I didn't want it to kind of dive into the world and be influenced by all the corruption that I feel sometimes can be out there. So for the first 10 years, it was just slow, baby
But what
steps.
if competition showed up? What if your neighbor's kid started to see what...
Then so be it. Right?
You were cool about it.
I was cool with it. I mean, again, I wasn't chasing dollars. I was not trying to become famous. I was not trying to take over the world. I really just wanted to make a great product and share it with the world. And again, if it was one bottle or 1 million bottles, to me there was no difference. It was just doing something great.
That's great. And a lot of businesses don't have that philosophy. Would you say that at the core, that's the reason you've been so successful?
I mean, I would say it's one of the reasons why I think we haven't made too many mistakes or missteps. Is it because we haven't been exposed to some of that external pressure that comes from investors, competition, just a lot of that external noise that says you need to be this, you need to be that, you need to be here, you need to be there. It just allowed me to focus on the kind of artistic journey, which I think ultimately resonates with the consumer, because I think most consumers really appreciate when something comes from a pure place.
Yeah.
And
I didn't even know you, and I know the product, and you just feel it.
Yeah.
The
It's
label,
like a vibe.
the bottle, the drink, everything feels authentic.
Yeah.
Like whoever's making this cares about it.
Right.
Right.
And that's absolutely positively intentional, of course, and sacred. I mean, whenever we do anything, whether that's a new flavor, a label change, a website change, we don't look at like what's trending, what are other people doing, what should we be doing. It's really about how can we communicate in a voice and a tone that will resonate with people, right?
Yeah.
And not only let them connect with the product, but also kind of have them feel inspired to think differently, eat differently, drink differently, exercise differently. So it's a consciousness.
Could we get at the end of the Spartan race, we should have a big vat of black kombucha. It would be like the old days in Sparta, right? And we could have a ladle, and
Sure.
everybody could do a shot. Could we
Sure.
do something like
Yeah.
that? That'd be pretty cool. It would have to be made with love, of course,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So we'd have to have one of your disciples.
Yes, they're
come out.
chanting over it.
Exactly. So let's end with 3 business tips. You've now gone 20 years doing this,
Yes.
right? 3 business tips for somebody that's just getting off the couch, trying to get their life going. Do it authentically,
Yeah.
obviously, right?
Well, no, I would say, first of all, dream big. Don't let your dreams ever be suppressed or stifled by what people say you can't do, what people say you shouldn't do, or what you should do. So just dream big and let the sky be the limit. The other thing is surround yourself with smart people who are like-minded, kindred spirits, and people who are smarter than you, because it's important to know what you don't know.
Sure.
And the third thing is to find fulfillment in the little things, the journey, the creation, the kind of artistic endeavor. It can't be the finances, it can't be the bottom line, it can't be the fame, it can't be the reputation of, being the best or being number one, because that will always skew your perspective and the decisions that you make. And in many ways, it could sabotage what you do.
So we've interviewed Richard Branson, we've interviewed the guy that shot Bin Laden, the CEO of Kodak, and those guys all went to college. Did you finish college? Because you're a pretty smart guy.
Thank you. I didn't finish college. Actually, when I
Where
started
did you get all this knowledge? From the kombucha?
From the kombucha, yeah. It's a very wise culture that, has taught me a lot. Well, first of all, I think I pride myself on wanting to know everything, right? So regardless of what interaction I'm in, I really want to take in that other person's perspective, their experience, their background. And I pride myself on being a fast learner, because I think, knowledge is key, right? And I think that I feel very blessed to come from the kind of Eastern experiences that I was exposed to at an early age, which kind of...
It opened your mind up.
It forces you, to have a very open mind, to be a sponge, that there is no wrong, there's beauty in everything.
Yeah.
And so I see the world through that perspective, and it helps.
You're awesome.
Thank you.
Oh,
You're
one
awesome.
last thing. How many bottles should somebody drink of this a day?
I would say on average 1. But, you can drink up to 3 and be totally fine. Anything more than 3, you probably should just be drinking more water.
Cool. All right, good stuff.
All right, thank you.
He's really in that whole world of fermentation, and fermentation is so cool and so important for the probiotics, your gut flora, the ecology of your belly. Sandra Katz has a great book, The Art of Fermentation, if you want to dive into the worlds of sauerkrauts and salts and all these beautiful things. In our society, you're like, what the heck's kombucha? And then a guy goes ahead and he markets it and does it well. Like Runa tea takes a new leaf from a tree in the Amazon that's highly caffeinated. And it's just interesting that there's all these beautiful, yummy, really healthy things that are out there that are estranged until someone gets really dedicated.
Yeah, and it's great how he got into that too. So he didn't look for, I'm going to look for the next new health fad.
No, it touched his family.
Yeah, he saw something that worked for his family and just kept playing with that idea.
He is a bit different than some of the others we've seen in that he's similar in that he's a self-made man, right?
Very much so.
Very much so, because he's a guy who dropped out of high school or quit the normal high school track and went a different direction, and then went into college but quit that as well to take on this company. So he already kind of had that vision, and he had the self-drive, if you will, to go ahead because of the family situation to get into this. But, you know, from looking at him and talking to him, you get, as you say, this almost spiritual kind of guy, very quiet, unassuming. You know, you wouldn't think that was a guy who at, you know, probably, 16, 17 is already kind of being a rebel. Right, because he doesn't want to follow the normal path. He's gonna chart his own.
And I thought it was neat too, like when he talks about dropping out, and he says it wasn't for the reasons you'd think. It was because he looked around and thought, I'm around a bunch of people who don't want to be here. We're making bad decisions together because none of us want to be here. And he actually dropped out of normal school and went to what sounds like an alternative school simply because those people at least were choosing to be there. And then when he had the opportunity to pursue this business, you know, Joe says to him, did you ever finish college? He said, no. I mean, I'm so fascinated by learning and taking in knowledge and sharing that knowledge. And but I also thought it was great that he said, I never was chasing profit. I was never chasing fame or fortune. What I was chasing was an opportunity to contribute and give something that I really knew a lot about and wanted to master. And when he said, you know, at the end, the tips, he said, don't get too caught up on that big picture at the end, and that's the only thing you're going after. Enjoy the process, enjoy the art along the way. And we've heard that again and again from different people. I think back to, you know, the wrestlers you're going to read who say, if you want to be a national champion, don't worry about being a national champion. Worry about being the best at the basics.
Yeah, but I'm interested. You used two words. You used picture, and you used the word art, and it kind of makes me think the same thing of the artist, right? The struggling artist that's out there painting and striving to create their vision. They don't really care if you like it.
That's right.
You know, they're painting what they see and what brings them pleasure, if you will. And that's what they're trying to achieve, some kind of perfection in their mind, what it should look like.
So I think, with GT Dave too, there's one point where I think his success was assured. So he's probably, 13, 14, 15 when he decides to drop out of school.
I think we need a new term. He liberated himself from the
so,
confined cages of.
So I've seen in these podcasts again and again talking about delayed gratification and making hard decisions now to get a reward later. And he recognized that his path was not sending him in the right direction. And at that age, that's phenomenal. And so that right there is kind of the spark that shows that he would have been successful in whatever, because he recognized that, you know, he needs to make that change to make himself better and push himself in the right direction.
Well, he's a guy who can rely on himself. Again, which kind of goes to the whole endurance athlete or the wrestling mindset. He's not worried about what everybody else is doing. Right. He's worried about what he's doing. Well, he said he's got the intestinal fortitude to keep moving forward.
And when they said, or when Joe said, well, what if the kid next door starts doing it? You know, you're taking your time. What if the kid next door starts doing it? He goes, I don't care about the kid next door. I'm just going to do it really well. The last thing I want to mention was that the parental support, you know, we think about parental support and we tend to get bogged down in thinking that means doing things for our kids. I love the fact that when he said to his dad, hey, I really want to go with this and turn this into his business, his dad said, yeah, that's a big thing. I guess you'd better do that. So I want to encourage everyone to go to our website. You'll learn more about Kombucha Dave, more about Joe, more about the podcast in general, SpartanUpPodcast.com. We'll see you all there.
See you there.
Thank you for watching another epic story of success. If you like our message, please share Spartan Up with your friends and subscribe on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you catch our show, maybe in the woods. Spartan Up is brought to you by Spartan Race. To find a race near you, visit Spartan.com.